have this really funny clip where like we're genuinely standing waiting for this line of penguins to pass, like that are going in front of where we were going to like hike up this mountain. And I'm just like, this is crazy that this is just happening right now.
Welcome back to Educator University. Feeling stressed out from teaching? What if a hike, a climb, or even just time outside could help you reset, recharge, and regain your focus? Today's guest, Ryan Delana, is a professional mountaineer, ski guide, and rock climber who has explored some of the world's most extreme environments. He's here to show teachers how the outdoors can be a powerful tool for stress relief, resilience, and mental clarity. Welcome, Ryan.
Happy to be here.
It's great to have you. I think just starting in, let's just start with that big question. Like, teaching can be a little bit stressful. How can spending time outdoors help manage stress?
I think ultimately getting outside, what it provides you is an opportunity for presence. So if you're moving, especially if you're doing something that's challenging, that kind of forces you to be into the moment, it can really take your mind off of anything that's going on in your world outside of that moment, which can be really freeing. I think a lot of people don't have that outlet, especially with how plugged in we are. I also think that it provides an opportunity when you're doing these elective challenges to realize your true capabilities. So you just carry yourself better when you know that you can go into the mountains or whatever your preferred activity is and overcome challenges from the weather, from the terrain. It makes the small things you're dealing with feel like they're more manageable.
Yeah, it kind of puts everything in perspective in a way. Yeah. I'm kind of curious what drew you. You have done quite a bit of like extreme sports from skiing to climbing. I'm curious like how you came to be interested in those things and what drew you to all these hobbies that you do outside.
Well, I went through a pretty complicated childhood. I really didn't have much going for me in my favor. I was in the therapeutic school system and I was like getting restrained physically daily. And I just didn't have any sort of outlet, any sort of opportunities for joy. I tried team sports, but I didn't like feeling like I was in competition with others. I preferred to be in competition with myself and to like work at things at my own pace. So when I found skiing, it was kind of my first opportunity to have free expression, free engagement with risk. Like you show up to the mountain and you decide like, okay, do I feel ready to ski this particular slope or line? And you're sort of using the sport, the very act of moving downhill on skis to engage with challenge, to engage with risk in nature. And I just liked the physical act of it. It was fun for me to slide on snow. It was fun to be outside and to, feel the nice cold air and to be in the trees. Like I was always interested in exploratory skiing. Like I never really wanted to go off jumps. I didn't want to race and try and like put up the best time in competition. I wanted to like go into the woods or go off the backside of the mountain, like figure out like where it seemed like there could be skiing, but maybe there wasn't, and explore that. So I think it was really just an expression of like childhood dreams. Like I think everybody finds their outlet for like what they want to be like, when I was a kid I would draw pictures of exploring outer space or climbing Mount Everest or something, and like I ultimately my outlet for becoming an explorer was skiing.
Yeah, and I love that idea of having an outlet and also feeling like you don't have to compete. I think that's a big thing as well when you're trying to relax. Some people find that relaxing to compete, some people not so much. So having like that awareness of what helps you relax is a really big part of finding that relief of stress.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious, you have done a lot of extreme things, it sounds like, with all the different activities. If a teacher is thinking, maybe I want to get into one of these hobbies, is there like tips in terms of how to get themselves prepared for, let's just say, like hiking or climbing? That like, should they buy all the equipment or should they go try something? What would you suggest in terms of just getting started, getting their feet wet if they're not an outdoorsy person initially?
I think the big thing for me in the very beginning was you just have to get out and do it. I mean, skiing was pretty easy because I got into it young enough that my dad was driving up there. But once you get into like adult, you're thinking about like, oh, do I want to like drive my car up here and like commit my time to this on the weekend? Do I want to buy all this equipment? It came down to just committing to doing it. And I think you have to identify what it is you want to do. And then you have to show up for yourself like, all right, I'm actually like when my alarm rings, I'm going to get up, I'm going to drive to this mountain and I'm going to go hike it. And I think part of that comes with, all right, first identify what's around you that you can do. For me, I had proximity to the White Mountains, which is the biggest national forest in the Northeast and has a lot of opportunities for hiking, climbing, skiing. Any sport you want to get into, you can find a way to do it in the White Mountains. So wherever you live, find your nearest outlets for recreation.
Fine, you'll just
I think ultimately the best way to start is like identify what's around you. So like for me, I grew up with close proximity to the White Mountains, so I could drive there on the weekends or whenever I had days off, and you can hike there, you can ski, you can rock climb. There's all sorts of ways to get into it. And then once you identify like what's near you, you can kind of set a goal. And I think the first thing is you just have to show up for yourself. Like it's really easy to make excuses on why not to go, but you just have to like commit to like on this day I'm going to do this thing that I'm into. It I know it's weird, maybe I have to do it by myself, maybe I don't feel like I know enough to know. But the only way you learn is by starting. So just pick like a small approachable goal, like going up some crazy mountain with no experience is never a great idea, but there's always a lower end of the opportunities in the range. Like wherever your local recreation area is, I guarantee there's like a beginner option for whatever sport you want to get into, and just go out there and try it. I think another great resource for you if you can afford it or have the opportunity to participate is going out with a guide. That's what I do as part of my career. Is that I work for Acadia Mountain Guides. So like people who want to try rock climbing, even if they have no experience, they can sign up and I outfit them with all the equipment I need. I take them out to the sea cliffs and we go rock climbing. And it's a great opportunity to figure out if you like the sport or not without actually committing to getting the gear. And some people aren't always into it. Some people are like, this is great. Like when I go home, I'm going to like buy some rock shoes and get a gym membership. So guides are always an option if you don't want to go alone, if you are nervous about like the hazards, or if you just want to figure out if you like it or not.
I like that suggestion of just getting started with a guide because you might not like it. But I think I love to ski, but then you might go try it and be like, "Oh my gosh, I don't like the cold," or whatever. You don't think of all the details, and so it's good to just try it once. But you kinda do a lot of extreme activities. Is there one activity that you would say is, like, the best to start with in terms of, like, if you have no outdoor experience, try this. It's more likely you're gonna like it or enjoy it.
Well, there's kind of two answers to that. I think hiking is one of the easiest outdoor activities to get into because you literally just need a sturdy pair of shoes and a backpack. Some hikes are so short you don't even need a backpack, but it's an activity that can be any length of time you need it to be. It can be something that takes all day, or it could be something that takes in half an hour. You can always go walk on a trail. But for things that are, maybe more intense than that, I honestly recommend skiing because every mountain is going to have ski instructors, every mountain's going to have rental gear. And a little bit it's almost like a light version of nature. Like you are outside, you are experiencing the elements, but there's chairlifts and there's ski patrol and there's a lodge that you can warm up in and it has food nearby. So you're not like committed to like being deep in the heart of the mountains and figuring out this activity. And there's people who can teach you how to do it in a relatively controlled setting.
Yeah, I like that. Start with something simple, start with something accessible, and maybe do something, and then see if you want to actually invest in the equipment before you go doing, buying everything and then deciding, oh, maybe this isn't for me. So yeah, starting slow. Yeah. I'd love to hear more about your story. I think teachers could really kind of relate to the idea of resilience that you've kind of created and that you had experienced by going outdoors and through your childhood and moving into your adulthood, choosing this career. Could you talk a little bit about like why you chose why the outdoors spoke to you? And you kind of talked a little bit about it before. Could you share a little more like what was the outdoors? What was so important about that for you? How did it help you to find resilience and persistence in your life?
Well, I think this is something that a lot of teachers have maybe experienced, depending on what department or class or what school you're at. But I was a challenging kid, and at the time, the teachers decided that I like wasn't easy enough to deal with and recommended that I be moved to different schools. And at those schools, I was experiencing physical restraints. I was being traumatized by the way they were trying to modify my behavior. And I think the system at the time ultimately they didn't want to work with me. They were determined to break me so I could work with the system. So it's like, all right, if I can't sit still rather than engage me, it's all right, move me somewhere else. It's all right, like take me out of class for the full day. It's like, all right, put me face down on the floor and hope that if you do that enough times, I'll stop acting up because I don't know, be too scared to. Like, I don't know what the logic was, but there was a lot of efforts to break me down and get me to fit the mold, when in reality, like, I learned best and I liked the outdoors because I learned by doing. I was a bodily kinesthetic intelligence kind of person. Like, I learned by doing things, not by hearing things. And I was also 5 years old when all this started. I didn't really have an opportunity to grow up and grow out of some of these things. Like, how many annoying 5-year olds have you met? How many have you met that are great listeners and retain a lot of information in pre-K? Like, I don't even think most people remember pre-K. So I think what can be learned from my story is that oftentimes people just need someone to work with them, not against them, and figure out, like, okay, what are your interests? How do you learn? Like, how can I reach you? Because ultimately there was a time when, being in the mountains and learning from mentors who were skiers out there, like, I realized, like, that was the kind of the only way to get through to me. Was I needed to feel like I trusted somebody, and I needed to feel understood, and I needed to learn in the way that I learned. Like, it wasn't that I was incapable of learning. I've retained everything I've ever heard from ski instructors and guides and, like, people who were mentors in the industry. If I had that in school, it would have been great.
Were there any teachers in the school system that did give you a little bit of that understanding, or was it more outside of the school system that you experienced that?
There was a few, like, I distinctly remember at one of the therapeutic schools I was at, and I recognized, like, if you're in public school, there's not always opportunity for this, but, like, I remember I got there and I was really good at math. I was really not good at like, reading comprehension. And, like, if you sit me down with a book, I would not have a great time. If you told me to write like a 5-page essay, I'd probably panic. But I just understood math really well at the time, and they gave me this, like, aptitude test, and I, like, thought the math was too easy. And so I started writing down all of my own problems and just solving them. And I had, stuff that was above grade level on there, and, crazy stuff with geometry. And, I had some, like, algebra equation in there, like, just stuff that I'd learned from people outside of school that I, like, retained. And at first, the first teacher that picked it up was like, this, like, he's not doing the thing you told him to do. Like, you really, like, you've got to get through to him somehow. And rather than, reprimand me for not doing the test, the head teacher in that classroom, she actually looked through everything and checked each one of the things I'd written down. And she's like, all of these are right. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'll complete the test. And she's like, no, like, we're gonna figure this out. And so ultimately what she did is she until I was old enough to be moved to one of the higher classes, she moved me to this other classroom where it was just me and one of the math teachers. And she just taught me math that was at my grade level. And then I think I actually might have gone to a lower English class, but in both instances, they kind of met me where I was in terms of, like, the learning I needed. And it was like, it helped me at the time because I didn't feel overwhelmed in one subject and I didn't feel bored in the other one. So that one always stands out to me. And then all of my outdoor ed professors too, just, like, the ways that they understood who their student base was, and, like, could tell, like, okay, all of you are dozing off, but you need to stand up for 5 minutes and do some jumping jacks. Like, all right, we're gonna go teach this class outside in the sun because, like, it's a beautiful day out, and, like, I don't need the whiteboard to, like, do this lesson, and clearly this is where you guys want to be. And just we're so able to, like, cater to every learning style and to keep the class's attention to, be funny, to be engaging. Those are experiences that really stand out to me as, like, people within the framework that got through to me.
Yeah, and it's really encouraging to hear those, 'cause both those things are things we do as teachers. We kinda try to meet students where they're at, and then, of course, like, creating those little brain breaks, we call them that nowadays are called brain breaks for your students to kinda have a moment and move around for students that need that movement and throughout their day. So, whether you're, in college or even younger years, so important. I think one thing that teachers can also learn from you is staying calm under pressure. You have tackled environments like Antarctica, if I'm reading correctly, and Baffin Island. Could you talk
Mhm.
about what those experiences taught you about staying calm under pressure?
Ultimately, what you learn from those experiences is that a lot of times you just need to remember what you know how to do. So, like, when you're in Baffin Island on the side of a, like, 3,000-foot couloir, those experiences for me were some of the biggest things I'd ever skied. And you look at a couloir like that, and you're like, I've never seen anything that tall. But once you're in it, it's like, okay, I've skied this kind of snow before. I've skied this pitch before. This might be a bigger line than maybe I've ever been on, but all of the fundamentals are still the same. And you kind of develop this bandwidth of like, no matter how far out you are or what the circumstances are, you know where you can maintain control. I know, okay, on this pitch, I'm skiing this fast in these snow conditions. This is something that I'm always able to do. And it helps you, for one, like develop this very real relationship with danger of like acknowledging, like, okay, these are the risks, but what is the actual likelihood that I will experience the consequences based on the conditions, based on my ability level? It develops like a very like realistic and like based sense of confidence in your ability levels, but it also helps you recognize like when something is just simply not worth getting upset about. All right, you're 5 minutes late to this thing. Like chances are that's not as big a deal as your brain wants to make it out to be, and it's probably fixable. It's way less scary than a polar bear track with fresh poop being a 5 minute walk from where your tents are. That was really stressful. And I don't think you need to necessarily go to the mountains to experience those concepts in principle. I mean, if you're standing up in front of a class of 100 versus like a class of 20, chances are the lecture's the same and you know the material just as well as you would in either scenario. And if you're like nervous speaking in front of a crowd, you just have to kind of remember, like, all right, I know how to explain this and how to break this down for somebody. I don't teach in a classroom setting, so that might not have been a great example, but like that's just what I come back to.
Yeah, the perspective, I think, is a big piece of what you do and also what we do as well. I have to say on a side note, I just wanna hear more about Antarctica. What was that trip like? Like, why was that on your bucket list? Was that something that you've always wanted to do?
He's fascinated by the places that look the most interesting on the map. So if I was a kid and I like had the globe, like when I was skiing, I always looked for the parts that were painted white because like that's probably where the coldest places are. And Antarctica was just one that it's kind of the last frontier. It's the only continent that doesn't have permanent settlements aside from like a few small scientific bases. And all things considered, the trip isn't super extreme, at least the way we did it, because you go with like a tourist boat through Quark Expeditions that's already going there. And then you're just taking the Zodiacs that they usually use to cruise around, and you're just landing on shore and climbing up the mountains and skiing back down them. The skiing is also pretty straightforward. Antarctica is kind of a weird place because for how covered in snow it is, it really doesn't snow there that much. So a lot of the like really steep lines that are out there are actually just like a very thin layer of snow on top of blue ice. And the better skiing is on the lower angle stuff. What's really the sort of shining moment of Antarctica is what you get to see there. Cause like you genuinely like will see thousands of penguins like by accident. Like if you're near a penguin rookery, I have this really funny clip where like we're genuinely standing waiting for this line of penguins to pass, like that are going in front of where we were going to like hike up this mountain. And I'm just like, this is crazy that this is just happening right now. There's there's whales in the bay. Like the ocean is like a very deep blue, and when you get up close to it, it's just so clear because the water is just so pristine. Crazy glaciation. I think that the concept of glaciers almost gets like broken in Antarctica. Like normally, like we don't think of there being cracks on the summit or these like sort of insurmountable head walls, but there's just so much ice that it covers the landscape in kind of an incomprehensible way. And it's just also just quiet. Generally, you're the only people out there. And I think even areas that are like heavily visited by tourist boats, they have like an order, like they try and not go to the same area at the same times just to like not overwhelm the nature there.
So was part of your, experience there climbing the glaciers or doing extreme things in Antarctica, or were you just visiting, kinda seeing the lay of the land?
So part of that trip, so we were skiing there. So essentially, there's no chairlifts or anything there. You have to climb the mountains and then you have to ski back down them. Um, which is like kind of the idea. So that was kind of our whole reason for going is we wanted to ski there because there's snow there to be skied and it's just a crazy place to experience that. And I think that's kind of what drives all of my like want for exploration is like, all right, where is there ski potential? How cool is it? And like how novel would it be and how challenging would it be to get there? So like Baffin Island was the same way. That trip, it doesn't have as much of a ring to it as Antarctica. Most people don't necessarily know where it is, but that one was way more challenging. I mean, we had to fly up there, which was super complicated, and then you land and you work with native Inuits who snowmobile you like 100 miles out onto the sea ice and then just leave you there. And so Antarctica, we're coming back to this like cozy like tourist boat every night out there. We're just like sleeping on this like tent pitched on frozen ocean. And it's just kind of one of those things like, wow, we're really out here. Like if anything happens, like we have to solve it within our crew. And obviously there's polar bears, contrary to what movies would have you believe. There's no polar bears in Antarctica, which is nice. They are in the Arctic. And the terrain was just way bigger. Like we went there because it has the biggest couloirs on Earth. It's like just these, Yosemite type walls, like these just impenetrable walls that just have one snow hallway that splits them. And it's like, cool, that's the most beautiful ski line I've ever seen. Let's go climb that thing and ski it. We also just went to Ecuador, and skied on the equator, which was really cool. Like there's this mountain called Cayambe and this other one called Cotopaxi that go to 19,000 feet. And like you don't think of Ecuador as a place that's like a ski destination, but if you get high enough, there's snow, and you're skiing with like the jungle off in the distance. So stuff like that just like really fascinates me and like drives my psych for exploration.
Yeah, what's the next trip you have planned? I have to know. I'm just curious.
I don't have anything officially planned yet. There's a lot of places I want to go, but
Okay. What's
right
the
now
list?
it's
What's your list looking like? Can you share?
I would say like I keep a lot of those things like pretty close to my chest.
Okay, okay.
Just because I don't know what I'm gonna be able to pull off, so I don't want to have expectations out there.
I understand.
But there is a list, and there will be more adventures coming up.
Sounds good. Well, it sounds like you've already had quite a few, and it's been it really is a lot to hear about your experience, how the outdoors has helped you to not only find a profession, but also find a mental state of wellness, and to hear your story with teachers as well. It's been really inspiring. So, are there any final thoughts you want to share that we haven't yet covered that you want to share with teachers today?
I think ultimately, I think most people that come through classrooms, especially if you're in like the public school system, are just trying to get through the day. But there's always going to be people who like you are kind of the make or break. And anytime you have the opportunity to help somebody who is struggling and meet them where they're at, you're creating, a really positive educational memory for this person of like, wow, I really was not grasping this, or like, oh, I really wanted to understand this more. And this teacher like was very helpful. And vice versa. Anytime you're like difficult with somebody, they're probably gonna like remember you as like this like sort of poor educational memory, like the reason why learning is hard for them, which can be a lot of pressure. And sometimes people are just going to be difficult. Like there are kids who are just going to be bratty about like wanting to learn. But anytime you can meet somebody where they're at, it can make a world of difference beyond anything because you don't necessarily know what that kid's going through or how hard this is for them, or especially if some of the kids who are acting out. Like I remember when I was in high school, like, I would, like, pretend to not care as, like, a defense mechanism for, like, actually really being insecure about my ability to get the work done in a way that was quality. So, you never know, like, the difficult kid could literally just be the most scared to fail, and you just kinda have to, like, tease that out of them to get to the realness and help them be successful.
Yeah, that indifference might be a safety mechanism or maybe something they're not realizing how much they actually do care. They just don't want to maybe let go and let themselves see that they do care. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it's all, like at the end of the day, every behavior is, like, to get a need met. Like people might just not be getting the attention they need. People might be insecure. Like there's always a source, and it's usually not because like this is just like a bratty kid who kind of sucks. Like there's probably, if it's not something at school, it's something at home. It's something in their friendships. Like there's always a reason why people struggle, why people act out, and figuring out how to work with them is the key.
Yeah, yeah, a great kind of reminder as we're on the other side of that as teachers. It's kinda nice to hear from your side of it how it kind of works and then kind of the pieces there. We have some, fun questions before we move into where the audience can find you. So, you can answer in a word or a couple words or however long or short you wanna answer. The first question here is your favorite lunch?
Either a burrito or like a taco.
Yeah. Favorite emotional or behavioral regulation tip?
Movement is medicine, and anytime you can elevate your heart rate or get your breath going, get your body moving, it has remarkable ability to shake off any mood that you're having, any sort of grogginess or stagnation. Like it just will change your whole landscape in that moment to get moving in a way that's intense enough to get your attention.
Yeah. A teacher that made a difference for you in your life?
Man, Mr. Lewis and Mr. Vankovich at Lincoln Sudbury, when I finally went back to public, they ran the outdoor and the ski and snowboard clubs. And as a result, I think they related to me a little more than some other teachers did, and just like made me feel at home more in the classroom, and were always checking in on me to make sure that I was like understanding things and like was able to get things done.
Yeah, it's a nice thing nice moments to have with people who you feel connected to. Last
Mhm.
one here is last lesson that you taught.
Last lesson that I taught was in I was in Acadia and had a kid who was probably about 17 or 18 years old. He was looking at colleges and like was about to graduate. His mom hired me for a day of rock climbing, and I taught him how to like tie into the rope, how to use his feet, upward progress instead of trying to do pull-ups, how to remove trad gear from the wall. We climbed the ramp route and we climbed the dike gully on the south wall of the precipice, and he said it was the best day of his life.
That is a really, really good compliment from a kid,
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
it's funny because both of those routes are like honestly like objectively not that great routes, but like I was like, cool, that was a great way to end my rock guiding season, was like to be part of somebody's best day of their life, you know?
That's such a cute.
Hopefully so far. Hopefully it's still going uphill from here.
Yes, yes. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing with teachers from your experience of outdoors and just all the things you've done. Where can my audience find you? I will also link it right below this video in the description.
So you can find me on Instagram at extreme_Ryan_Delana. That's probably where you'll get the most updates on me. If you direct message me, I'll probably respond. I try to respond to everybody on there, so that's the best way to get in touch with me. I'm on YouTube as Ryan Delana. That's where you'll see more like narrative or short film style content of what I'm up to, and I try and upload those pretty regularly. If you want to find my book, it's Without Restraint. And you can get that on Amazon. It's the one that's about skiing, not the one that's about bondage. There's two of them. I didn't write the other
Good
one.
clarification. Good clarification.
And then if you want to get my documentary that's coming out, it's called 91, in reference to the 91 routes I skied in our guidebook. You can find that at the Maynard Theater of the Arts on February 1st, where it's premiering.
Wow, a lot of things happening for you. It sounds exciting.
Hmm. Got a whole lot of stuff going on digitally
Yeah,
and physically.
sounds good. Well, thanks again, Ryan, for being on, and I look forward to hearing from the comments. Hopefully, some people decide to maybe dip their toes into some outdoor activities.
All right. Yeah, thank you for having me, and I hope everybody learned something positive from here. I know it's like kind of an extraneous thing to like compare climbing and skiing mountains to being in a classroom, but there's always parallels, and the mountains continue to teach me how to be a better person and how to understand the world more. And hopefully it inspired you to either get out there or look at what you do currently with a new light.
Yeah, love that.